G'day, Stu from UAVfutures here, and today we're going to be checking out this. Now this is the pretty much the little kit, the XJaguar, and the reason why mine is all built up because I originally planned to do this video in 2 parts, but this thing was so easy to put together that it took no time at all, so I have to go back and reshoot this intro scene. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking at how the kit comes, how it all goes together. We're going to stick it on the bench and then build it up, take it out and give it a flight. So this is going to be the full review of the XJaguar from Flypro. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. Oh, I got a little bit carried away then. I haven't really told you what it is. So it's like a 5-inch little pod racer that's super easy to put together. Rightio, let's get started. Alright, so here it is on the bench, and you can see this is, I guess, what it's meant to look like, but there was actually some things on the box that I wanted to point out. So the main one right here, so it says the fastest acceleration speed. Well, let's just take that with a grain. All of these take this with a grain of salt because we'll have to see. But these two are right here. So it's meant to have, it says, a 10-to-1, I guess, power to weight ratio or thrust to weight ratio, which is absolutely insane. So that's going to be very, very interesting. And also right here, it says it's got a 4S 1300 milliamp hour 100C battery. So I've never seen a battery with a C rating quite so high. So I'm kind of on the fence, you know, like I've never heard of this battery brand before, so we'll have to wait and see how it goes. If it was 100C, this would pretty much be like the best battery ever, but we'll have to wait and see. Alrighty, let's open it up and have a look at what we get. Alrighty, so this is how it's going to come when you actually get your kit. So it makes my job very, very easy to give this a bit of a very quick overview of what we got. And it's basically in 2 sections. Over here, I guess, is your frame and your battery, and over this side is the good stuff. So a very, very quick overview before we go over each of these in detail. So you've got your arms right here, your screws, your motor protectors, your velcro straps, and all your other little bits of the frame, as well as your 100C battery. And then on this side, here's probably the exciting part. So you've got your 4 motors, your Swift run cam camera, which is great, your props, and then this is pretty much what I think the magic of this build is. So you've got a very, very neat little stack with minimal soldering required, and you're going to have your VTX right here, which is the same, which is awesome. Look at the size of that thing. So your VTX 4-in-1 ESC's PDB, and this one right here is your Flypro F3 flight controller. So what we're going to do, let's jump in, and I want to start having a look at the actual these 3 right here, because they're probably my most exciting, the parts I'm most excited about. All right, so I've got my, I've just pulled out pretty much, what's that, a bit of glue, it seems like. That's fine. So I've got all my little pieces out right here, the pieces I really want to talk about, and something I didn't realize as I was pulling all this stuff out, the motors, like, I've got 12 solder joints and this build is done. So this looks like it is going to be very, very easy to build. Pretty much like building Lego, except for soldering on the motors, but everything else looks like it's plug and play. Right, so let's have a look, and let's start right here with this board. So obviously this rocks an F3 flight controller, and this is, let's plug it in and see if it's rocking Betaflight. There's a ton of ports on here, and something that actually is a little bit impressive is you don't need to do anything except for solder up. Actually, even your receiver, I don't think you even have to solder up. You don't have to do anything, any extra things with the pins or the layouts, because this actually stacks, if I can get this around the right way, to your 4-in-1 ESC. So you're able to plug this in right here, and when that is all together, you don't need to do any. That is pretty much it for your flight controller. So let's plug it in actually and find out what version, if it's running Clean Flight or Betaflight. All right, so it's running Clean Flight version 1.12. So for me, that's a little bit disappointing because I would like to see this thing rocking Betaflight, but oh well, not too much we can do about that. I do want to test it and see how it goes on Clean Flight before I actually flash it over to Betaflight. But also now let's talk about this right here. Now this is the 4-in-1 ESC. Alrighty, so now let's have a bit of a look at the ESC, and this looks unlike any 4-in-1 ESC that I've seen before because it comes with this little strange, I guess, XT60 connector right here on the back. So that I'm a little bit worried in a heavy crash if your battery gets jettisoned, is that going to rip that off and cause any permanent damage? Flipping it over, something I do like, now these are 30 amp ESCs, so that's what it says their max load is, and in the manual it doesn't actually say a burst rating, it just says 4 times 30 amp ESCs is their max load. So it could be 20, it could be 30. I'm not 100% sure what their burst rating is, but you definitely can fly around with 30 amps.
per motor, which is a fair bit anyway. Just right here, I really do like how the motors are sort of spaced out, so it very clearly labels motors 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's also in the same orientation as it goes to when you're actually plugging your motors in from CleanFlight, or when you're soldering them up, because that's how they work in the CleanFlight configurator. And other than that, I think it just says, oh, you can take a 2 to 6S LiPo, so it says on here 2 to 6S LiPo, so good luck to you if you're running 6S on this. But it doesn't say if it's BL Heli S or not. So I think in part 2 of the review, that's something that we're going to have to check out, if it is BL Heli S or if it is just standard BL Heli. At the looks at the moment, I'm probably thinking it might just be standard BL Heli, because there's no mention of S anywhere in here, but it does say it is BL Heli. So that is interesting. So hopefully it's BL Heli S, but I'm probably going to put my money on and say that it is just standard BL Heli. All right, and then the final part of the stack is this right here. Now this is your switchable OSD VTX that can rock up to 40 channels, and can also, not too much to say, besides 40 channels, you can switch from 25 all the way up to 600 milliwatts in terms of your power. And something I do like, speaking of this, is your little antenna adapter. So all you have to do is clip this on, this little tiny micro UHF connector. That should just pop on right there. Let's see how we go. There we go. Clips on just like that. And if you're using this build, make sure you put a little hot glue over here, because that's the last thing that you want. You don't want that to strip off at all. Now, I am going to mention right here, you do get an antenna that goes with this, and here's the antenna, and that screws on right here. But this is just a standard whip antenna. If you're going to be putting this on that, why did they bother even putting this sort of big connection in here? Why didn't they just make that a standard whip that came out? Because that would have saved a fair bit of weight if they just had a straight whip, because there's no point in doing that. This is really if you want to attach one of those bigger antennas, like a circular polarized antenna or something like that. So I think that's a little bit of an oversight on Flypro, on the Jaguar's behalf, that they actually included this whole part right here just to put a whip on the end. If it's going to be a whip, just make it a whip like it is on the Atom. And then the special part of all these, they just slide together like this. Now I'm going to put this together later in the build when I actually decide to build the thing. But you can see they've got these tiny little pins right here, and that's going to allow them just to, when I press them together, to make a super clean stack with all these things stuck together, working. You're going to have your OSD working, which I forgot to mention is actually in your VTX. So you're going to have your OSD working as well, and hopefully you should have something that is very, very minimal. All right, now moving on, let's have a look at our motors. So the motors we've got here, they're the GT 2205 2300 kV motors. They're Flypro branded, and look, I've never heard of these things. It says the fastest thing or nothing, but motors, I really think you get what you pay for. So to be honest, they look pretty good, but I'm gonna hold my judgment on here and wait till we actually take them out into the field. So it does look, if I look inside, are they curved magnets? It's a little bit hard to tell if they've got some curved magnets around the outside there. They still feel very, very nice and smooth. Bit of a shame they've got the C-clip on the bottom. I do wish it had sort of one of those parts you could tighten up, and it is not a hollow shaft on the top. In my opinion, the 2300 kV is perfect for a 5-inch prop, which is exactly what this spins. So let's have a bit of a look at the props now. All right, so sticking with the red color right here, we've got, and these sort of look like the early versions of some Dal 5045s right here, but look, they're not my favorite sort of prop. I like the Dal 5040s, the tri-blades, or maybe even the Cyclone props. And these right here, they look a little bit old school, so maybe a little bit behind in the time, but time will tell if these props hold up. You only get one set, which is something that I thought was very, very interesting, especially if you're paying this much money for a drone. Definitely include a few sets, because you're going to do a few crashes, and I know I'm going to be crashing, and the last thing you want is to get out, have a blast wave flying around, break a prop, and then be grounded until some new ones arrive. But no biggie, because I'm sure plenty of us have a heap of props anyway, so most of us, if you don't like these props, it's not very hard to switch them out for another 5-inch favorite. Alrighty, and then on the FPV side of things, something that is a fantastic little addition, you've got a RunCam Swift, and I think RunCam makes some fantastic cameras. I know there was a massive hype about the Eagle a little bit ago, but what I really like, I think the Swift is a fantastic camera, really responsive, and this is pretty much the one I use all the time when I'm flying in most of my builds anyway, so I'm very happy to see that the RunCam Swift is coming in this kit. Now, it is a CCD camera, yeah, and pretty much like the HS 1177 size and style. It's just like a real gold standard for me, and what I think to put in the quad. So great to see that we get the RunCam Swift. Alright, and then finally we have the frame, and you can see it is a very, very minimal frame. So you've got your 4 arms. This part is actually interesting. Most frames are made out of carbon, but we've got some sort of, I don't think it's maybe it's anodized aluminium, but not 100% sure. So that's going to be interesting to see just how well that holds up, because that's not carbon right there. They really seem to like their red color. Got some aluminium down here as a bit of a brace to hold your arms together where all the impact spreads out through, and then some little carbon plates right here. What we're going to do, let's measure these arms. I think they're going to come in at 4 millimeters, but let's measure them. So we've got this in 0, this in, let's see, so yeah, 3.8, 3.9 millimeters. So I reckon this would be off by the 10th of a millimeter. So yeah, we do have some 4 millimeter arms there as well. Now, what we're going to do, and of course you get all your little standoffs and stuff, which are all red as well. So there's definitely a theme for this build. What we're going to do, let's put all this together and see how it goes. Rightio, so here it is, and the first thing I'm going to say is I've never ever built a quad quite so quickly. There was literally 12 solder joints I needed to do, and that was it. So that is probably my favorite thing about this kit, is just how easy it is to put together. So if you're sort of wanting to get a kit and you sort of want to do a little bit of soldering, but you're not 100% sure on how everything goes together, this kit definitely made it very, very easy. Rightio, let's talk about some of the things that I do like, and then some of the things that I guess bugged me in here. So the things that I do like its compact size. So looking at here, everything is very neatly squashed in right here. The little VTX combo and the ESC pads and everything like that, and the flight controller OSD is very, very compact. I like the size of the motors that we've got on here. I think it's got a really good, I guess, prop system, and there's also a fair bit of clearance actually on the props just here, so you're not going to have any issues clipping or anything like that. Now, it does seem fairly rigid, and I think I do like the design, but there are some things that I would like to change. So let's start at the top and work our way down, I guess, through them. Number one, I've been thinking more and more about this since I put it together, and aluminium up here, I really think that is going to bend in a crash, because right where this joins, it pretty much has all this force is going to be going down onto 2 tiny little parts in the bottom right here, and that's a lot of pressure to put on, a lot of stress to put on a bit of aluminium. I think that would be better if it was just some red carbon fiber. Like, you can see how easy this part here, how easy these parts are flexing in and out. So let's talk about that. Number two, I really think that this should sort of be one solid piece on the side here, or if you were really, really desperate, I know you want to make it look like a Jaguar, but don't make those things, don't make this big cutout here, just join that right up so it's one solid piece, and it should also be carbon. Now this one's a bit of an interesting one, and maybe it's just a little thing, but to me it felt like this was in upside down, so if you plug that in around the other way, the writing to me should be down this way, so that was just something that might confuse people if they don't know what they're doing, but of course it doesn't really make a difference. Moving down, this part of the VTX actually grew on me. That does feel very secure in here, and that's because of the little cutout you've got in the bottom of the frame, so the XD60 is very, very secure. On the arms though, look at this, like, I could not get all 4 motor screws to line up, so whoever's put these arms together, unless I put them all on upside down or back to front or something like that, but it didn't matter which one I do, I really had issues putting the motors on with the correct screws in there. So I don't know if that's me, but what would be much better is if they were just universal. It didn't matter which way it went on, you were able to put these motors on regardless. Now I did try to flash this thing with the latest firmware on the ESCs, and I had no luck using the Heli suite there whatsoever. So to change the motor direction, I haven't had to do this in a long time. I had to desolder some of the motors and just cross over the wires. So other than that, it was very, very easy to get set up, but it was annoying that I couldn't use a bypass or anything like that, or a pass-through to program my ESC. So I actually don't know what type of firmware is running on the ESCs, if it's Heli S or Heli. I still suspect that it's just plain old Heli. Now the FPV camera up here is fairly well protected, but as long as, like we spoke about before, as long as this doesn't bend or break or anything like that in a very, very hard crash, I really think that this top pod's going to get ripped off. The props, we spoke about those before. I think they're going to be okay, but they're not my favorite props. But what we're going to do now, let's weigh the thing and see just how much it weighs. So take your bets. I'm going to guess and you'll also notice I didn't put on the little motor protectors on the outside, because in my opinion they're a bit of a waste of time, a bit of waste. They don't really save too much, and they can be a little bit annoying. I'm going to guess this thing is going to come in at about 380. I was going to say 370. Oh, well, okay, that's Oh, my hefting skills mustn't be very good. That's 321 grams. That is very, very light, actually. Let me weigh my GT2 and see how heavy is that. So that's 352. Okay, so this is a very, very light quadcopter. That's sort of, maybe it can get close to those 10-to-1 thrust ratios that it is claiming, because that's really light. I wonder if that's the aluminium making that so light or something. Wonder what's going on there. But overall, in terms of the build, like, look, it's probably a very, very solid performing quad. In terms of the build, it went together really, really easy, and I think that's what its biggest, the biggest plus that it's got going for it. It looks like it's got fairly decent components, but it also really looks like it is super easy to put together. I've never had a quad that went together so easily. I think it took about 1 hour to probably build and then have everything there, and then within the next hour, that was probably just me fiddling around, checking the ESCs, swapping the motors over, and setting it up in clean flight, putting the receiver in and getting it hovering. So for under 2 hours, I would have this thing ready to go, ready to rip a few packs. Oh, before I forget, one of the other things that bug me too, this part here, it's quite difficult to put that little screw in the back, just here to screw that camera down. What I actually needed to do, what I think this needs to be a little bit bigger, so the head of the screw can actually go through the aluminium on the outside and then screw down into the HS1177, or they need to provide a lot longer screws to go all the way through into the camera from the outside. But I don't think they'd want to do that because it wouldn't look nearly as good. Now, with all that said and done, that's how it looks. That's how it comes together. It looks like a really solid quad. You know, I think a lot of people would be happy flying this around. But let's take it out and let's give it a bit of a thrashing. So let's cut down to the field and see how it flies in 3, 2, 1. Right, so we're out here and we're going to be testing out the XJaguar. So this is going to be its maiden flight. There's a bit of a track set up here. There's actually a few people who turned up today, and we'll see how it goes. Now this thing, if you look at it, it's very annoying to try and mount a GoPro or anything like that. So we're just going to be checking out its DVR footage, and I'll do some commentary on how I think it performs. Alright, so this is literally the very first battery that I've put through it, and straight away you're going to notice that this thing is on clean flight. So look at those vibrations. That's probably the number one thing I was disappointed with. This is why I really don't like clean flight. It is so much worse than beta flight in most situations, unless it's been expertly tuned, which I don't think this really has. So these were just the stock PIDs. Look, it still felt like very responsive and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, there's no way I was going to be flying around. Lucky through the trees here. I don't know how I managed that. But we're going to come in, do a bit of a landing, and then put it back up. I'm going to put beta flight on here, because there's no way. I don't even want to fly this around the track when it's like this, because beta flight just makes it fly so much better. Alright, so here we are, and it was a little bit rainy, but goodbye water droplet there. So you can see we're flying around, and this is on a 4S pack. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on with the battery there, because I was getting some very strange things in the OSD that kept flashing. So maybe if I didn't hook it up correctly or something like that, but they're doing a little bit of a power loop. But yeah, the battery was doing some very strange things, or at least the readings for it in here. I think it goes down to like 11.1, but then it didn't change at all no matter what I was doing. Anyway, so you can see we've got Betaflight on here, and it is flying much better, and it definitely has some little power as well. So if you drop the hammer, you can see it's definitely very, very snappy and responsive. It's got plenty of speed, but it does have some of those oscillations, I guess, in those sort of, maybe the little P gain is a little bit too high on this, or maybe the props are a little bit too chunky. So if I was going to do this and go back and tune it, I probably would lower the little P values on the PIDs just there. Flying around, I felt like the video footage was fine, even though it was just using a whip antenna, so I didn't really get too much breakup whatsoever. And of course, when you record with the DVR with the Fat Sharks and the diversity module that I use, it always looks a lot worse than what it actually is when I'm flying around. So you can see there it's still got a good amount of speed and still covers the ground really, really well. Now I did boost these rates up a little bit, so that's not a full stick deflection right there, but yeah, I did boost the rates up from what they normally were. But other than that, I guess it was just it's sort of like a fairly average fly. It wasn't super amazing. It was definitely it was still definitely good. And if I was at the races and I didn't have anything to fly, and someone said, "Hey Stu, do you want to fly this thing around or do some acro with it?" I'd be like, "Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely give that a crack." And I reckon I could smash out a few laps with this if I was really pushing it as well. But it's definitely not in the high-end performance range that it is. That it's sort of quoting on the box, like a 10-to-1 thrust ratio or any of that stuff. I didn't really notice that whatsoever. So you can see there, I sort of gave it a bit of a punch. Now, one of the things I had issues with was I couldn't actually program the ESCs through here as well, so I'm not 100% sure what firmware is rocking on the ESC, because I couldn't get the pass-through to work, so that was a little bit annoying. And if they put some BOHeli S ESCs on here, I think that might make that a little bit smoother as well. And I would probably say that this quadcopter, it feels maybe like 4 months ago or something like that. I'm sure if I was flying this 4 months ago, I'd be like, yeah, this is great. But I feel like really lately I've been a little bit spoiled using the Helix and especially the GT2 and the Shuriken X1, all those things. See, that video breakup was, I think I was a little bit lucky there that I didn't clip those trees. But yeah, those newer quads that are coming out, like the GT2 and the Helix and those sorts of ones, they feel a lot better than this. Still a great quad, but I do think that there's better out there.
So there it is, there's my review of the XJaguar, and I've got to say, this one is both, there's some good points and also some bad points. So let's quickly rattle those bad points off. I don't really like the pod that's on the top. I don't like how it's made of aluminium. I hate how it came with clean flight because you saw how wobbly that was. So the first experience straight out of the box was a little bit funny. But after a little bit of tuning, it is a little bit of a powerhouse. So definitely a good quad, and I'd be more than happy to fly this thing around. And probably its biggest point, the thing I love the most, if you're really worried about building or you don't have the confidence to get in and get started and your, soldering freaks you out a little bit, definitely check this thing out. I mean, I had 12 solder joints in total, and that was it. The rest was all plug and play and made it very, very easy. So it's a fantastic, I guess, entry level, not entry level because it's got some serious performance, but it's a fantastic, I guess, entry level into building a quad. So it definitely gives people the confidence when it comes to building something as awesome as this. Anyway, hopefully that helps some of you guys out there, but subscribe for more FPV related content, and as always, happy flying.
Alrighty, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Definitely subscribe if you're new to the channel and check out these videos. And I'm also going to leave a little link here to my Patreon page because I've got some fantastic Patreon supporters and I like to give back to them as well. So if you want to join the UAVfutures family, there's things like bonus Velcro straps, little bundles of FPV goodies and things like that that also get sent out. Anyway, happy flying.